Hello and welcome to the Arsenal BiteSize Podcast. I'm, of course, FPL Nima, and I'm joined by my co-host Clayton. We have a really special episode for you today. We're going to review Arsenal's season so far. We've got a few of our guests on to give their opinions, analysis, and more. How are you, Clayton?
I'm good. Yeah, obviously it's the start of the World Cup later today, so we thought we'd squeeze in as much Arsenal as we can before that hype dies a little death for 5-6 weeks. But yeah, it's been obviously 1 week since Wolves, so we'll touch on that. We'll get our guests on and yeah, hopefully gloat a little bit about the season and then have a bit more of a rational chat about what we can expect later on. But yeah, been
As
looking
long as
forward to
there's
this for
some
a while.
gloating. Yeah, as long as there's some gloating in the middle, then rational stuff can come
That's
at
what
the
I
end.
do best.
Cool. So without further ado, let's bring on Glenn first, one of the AFC bite sizes. Good morning, Glenn. How are you doing today?
Morning, mate.
Hey Nima, hey Clayton. Yeah, good. Yeah, pleasure to be on. Yeah, been enjoying following the journey of the podcast. And yes, pleasure to be on. Yeah.
Nice. And I'm glad we've got you guys on. I know we were trying to do something around the time of the Queen's funeral, and obviously the matches got cancelled. So this seems like a better time to be meeting after 16 weeks into the season and Arsenal top of the table. Much more exciting stuff to talk about. And then also our final guest for this morning, we've got Adam as well, 35who on Twitter, as he's otherwise known. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm good, thanks, Nima. It's a pleasure to be on. Looking forward to a good amount of gloating, some basking, and we'll sort of leave the realistic stuff towards the end, I hope.
Definitely. And
Awesome.
quick shout out as well to Bungle, who's tuned in live. Good to see you. And he's liking your classic Arsenal jersey there, Clayton.
I'm proper Club Shop FC recently, aren't I?
Yeah, you've gone from wearing non-Arsenal jerseys.
I'd never wear
finally
colours at the game, and then when I'm at home, I'm like, get it all on.
After all your stints with the Ashburton Army in all black.
Yeah, I know. If they saw this, they'd rinse me.
Shout out as well to Bobby, who sadly can't be on the round table this time, but we'll be sure to get him on the show. Some audio and technical issues we're facing today. But so 5 hours to go, 4.5 hours to go till the World Cup, as you say. So let's just kind of talk about the season so far. I think maybe we look at kind of who each of us considers is like our highest performer, maybe worst performer, if there is one. I'm not sure there is. Maybe even dark horse of the squad, anyone who's pleasantly surprised us. And I guess things about like kind of what your expectations were going into the season versus do you have like any newfound expectations now that things have kind of gone as well as they could to start with, our best start in our history, as they say. So I think what I do want to put on the screen very quickly, actually, is just the league table before we talk about Wolves. So it feels like it would be ridiculous not to start here. So, Arsenal 5 points clear, 14 games played. Obviously, we saw City lost in the end of the 10 minutes plus added time against, I'm trying to remember who they were playing anymore. It was Fulham,
Brentford.
I think. Brentford was it?
Brentford, yeah.
Fulham, I'm just bitter about
Ivan
the
Toney
boy in
doing
the
a
dive.
great job before his suspension. Good lad.
Yeah.
18-month ban coming. Who knows how long it will be. Yeah, so that's incredible. Obviously, we're really happy with that. I think it's been a few weekends now, hasn't it, where we've played second after City.
Yeah.
And we've had that kind of added pressure going into those games. I never thought we'd be 5 points clear going into the World Cup. I think it puts us in good stead for our top four.
Well, that's a good question to ask. I guess like going to Glenn first. If going into the season, I guess we never really forecast out so far ahead, but where were you hoping to be around Christmas? I'm guessing it wasn't top, right, by 5 points.
Yeah, I guess just thinking top four, really. I'll be honest, when Jesus came in, I wasn't that sure about him. I was
Really?
thinking,
Okay.
I'm not sure how well he can finish, that kind of thing. But like being at the Emirates for that first game v Leicester, like he was just incredible. And just the difference between him and Lacazette has been like something else. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I was the same. That Leicester game was just, I think the game where I was like, damn, this guy's got so much more to his game than I realized. I think I knew about the dribbling, but I wasn't aware of like his core strength. And yeah, hopefully I think the finishing thing, like I think he'll just be a bit streaky with it personally. But yeah, Adam, how about yourself? Where were you hoping to be around 14 games going into Christmas?
I think I knew it would be. There was that spell, obviously, in October that would be that kind of real tough, kind of make or break section for the first sort of mini stint of this season. But then I think certainly going into the season, looking at the opening games, I don't think anyone was really thinking they were that easy. Like away at Palace, opening night of the season was obviously all set up for the narrative similar to what we had at Brentford the season before, where you could sort of see Sky licking their lips to have a classic Arsenal meltdown away. Yeah. They've got no bottle, all of that kind of stuff. And so obviously going into the season, I was quite apprehensive, and we just kept on winning. It wasn't just winning; we were putting in solid defensive performances as well, which is what surprised and kind of pleased me most, because I think with Jesus coming in and Zinchenko offering that kind of different inverted threat from left back, I think I was pretty comfortable with how we would set up and how we would perform from an attacking perspective. It was that defensive solidity I was still a little bit iffy about. But yeah, no, obviously it surpassed my expectations to be 5 points clear.
I think you hit the nail on the head, though. Like what you're saying in terms of the consistency in the performances, it's not like we fluked our way there, right? If you look at the metrics and everything, we're there on merit, and I think that's the biggest thing. The likes of like Palace away, Leeds away, obviously we fluked it a little bit, but the other games, I think we've been phenomenal in our consistency, style of play, and we just look fearless as well in the way we're implementing everything against the opposition.
And even when you look at that one loss we've had, it's like that United game will annoy me until the end of the season, because we didn't deserve to lose. And I know that can sound like it's a group of bitter Arsenal fans, but I think that's
right.
True.
You can say it here, just don't say it on Twitter.
We're in a safe space. I think if you look at that as being our only loss, even that game, I think we were, even if you don't want to say we were the better team, I think we were at least as good as United, and a 3-1 loss didn't sort of reflect the pattern of play in the game. So yeah, like you say, even the performances have been largely pretty decent.
Yeah.
I guess just before I remove this off the screen, I want to say, for our kind of top 4 expectations going into the season, because that's something I know when we spoke, Clayton, preseason, you weren't kind of the belief that 4th was the limit. I know some people had said that 2nd and 3rd were already locked down by like Liverpool and Tottenham, and people were confident Tottenham had 3rd, locked in, and there was no argument. They had a great window and all this stuff. Now looking back on it, to kind of be where we are, I don't just want to look at the gap between 1st and 2nd. Like, I want to kind of look at the gap between us and 5th. Yeah. Because like really, if top 4 was the goal going into this season, you would start to think that we're kind of getting already so early on very close to being pretty confident that at least that top 4 initial goal, that seems to be kind of locked in. If we continue playing the way we do now, I'm not sure that we could slip out of this top 4. So like, what is it? United in 5th, 26 points, 11 points ahead of 5th place. I think we're looking pretty good, like 14 games in, 11 points ahead of 5th. I thought like my goal was with those tough fixtures, obviously the City one got cancelled, but I'd kind of looked at it and thought, we've got United, we've got City, we've got Spurs, we've got Chelsea. I looked at all of those. I looked at Palace away on the first night, like you guys mentioned, and
Liverpool was in there in October.
Liverpool, so there's a lot. I honestly thought like if we can just be like 4th at the time, like just about. So 11 points. I don't know what Arteta was doing in preseason with these guys, but it's clearly working. And just kind of getting rid of this on the screen then. So going to the last game before we talk more about the season so far as a whole, the Wolves fixture, as we were saying. So, we went into that having to play 2nd. What did you guys think in terms of like the setup? Because I thought that was quite a weird game for us. Like, I actually think Wolves is like maybe the 2nd worst team we've played so far this season in terms of attacking threat after Forest. I don't know if you guys thought Wolves were maybe a bit better than I'm giving them credit for, but it kind of frustrated me seeing them going into a back 5 after spending so long playing in a back 4 this season.
Yeah, like going into the game, I was thinking, they're bottom of the table. This could be quite straightforward. But I think first half, it was quite an even game, really. It was just that bit of quality in the second half from Odegaard, and then we kind of bossed it. But like at half time, you're thinking, I'm not sure if we're going to win this. Like, just obviously we had the Southampton game a few weeks before. They're not a very good team, but we somehow managed not to win there.
Yeah, and I think also there was that whole, like half the squad or maybe even more had like dodgy stomachs. And so I think that seemed to impact on the first half, obviously with Xhaka having to go off relatively early.
Yeah.
I think you could tell we lacked a little bit of that kind of zip and intensity that has been like characteristic of all of our best performances this season so far. Like we've come out of the blocks and absolutely steamed into our opponents. And yeah, I felt certainly in that kind of early stage, like Glenn was saying, I think the first half was far more even than I was certainly expecting it to be based on like the performances of both sides going into it. But yeah, then once we got that first goal, I was pretty kind of comfortable that Wolves, with how blunt they've been this season, wouldn't be able to like do too much, even though they had that potential penalty offside shout.
He was offside, right? Yeah.
I got a bit confused about how that whole thing worked with VAR, but you know, if that gets given a penalty, and you know, those kind of moments can change the game, and then we're sort of we're having a different conversation here. But yeah, I think once we went a goal up, I was pretty confident we'd take home the 3 points.
It is interesting because I was at the game, and it's easy to forget. Like, obviously, I've just come away buzzing that we've sort of got 3 points into Christmas top of the league. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And especially what you said, Adam, about the games this season, we've just come flying out with the blocks. Like the amount of goal, be interesting to see statistically how many goals we scored in like the first 10, 15 minutes. But it just wasn't really clicking. And yeah, like you say, obviously the food poisoning illness was probably quite a big factor in that. And I think having someone like Xhaka, who's so important to the things we do defensively and offensively and starting patterns of play, that probably disrupted things. But I was really happy to see how Fabio Vieira settled in the second half. I think where I was sat, I didn't really have the best kind of idea of what was happening because of, like, my view was quite warped and stuff. But second half, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And then checking Twitter, the vibe was that in the first half he was not great. Is that how you guys saw it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like first half, everyone didn't seem to be as great. But yeah, I feel like Fabio Vieira really slotted into that Xhaka role so well, because I think against Southampton, when he came on, I don't think he was very good. But the way he slotted in just to fill Xhaka's role, and I think he played quite a crucial role in the first goal, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the run he made, like, to then get in the position to put that ball in was brilliant.
Yeah, so like, because I mean, Xhaka's getting on a bit, so maybe Fabio Vieira is going to be the player that steps into his position. Who knows?
I think it's interesting, isn't it, in terms of what is Fabio Vieira? Like, I don't think we quite know yet, right? Like, what is his long-term position? Because when Saka signs a new contract, I can't see him like long-term when he matures, Vieira going and playing on the wing. So does that mean that it is like a 8 when Xhaka retires? Is that the plan? I don't know.
I think that's one of the big problems that Fabio Vieira. I think he's been largely like pretty good so far in his Arsenal career, but something I think he struggled with coming into this game when he came on, and has done in general, is the players that he's replacing are like so key to everything we do. And especially when he comes on for Xhaka, even though Xhaka's obviously kind of taken on a more advanced role this season, still a lot of the work he does is more kind of box to box, and he's like sort of an all-court player, if we're speaking in like kind of basketball terms. And he's still using that physicality that kind of Xhaka is sort of stereotyped for with the bad fouls, but he's being a little bit more intelligent with it. And Fabio Vieira sort of looks like he's about 12 years old. He needs to, a bit stereotypical, but I think he needs a season of like Premier League football to like teach him how to sort of use physicality more intelligently, if that makes sense.
I said the exact same thing. I think it was just before the Wolves game. Like, not even, I think he needs to go bench press 100 kilos and stuff, but exactly that, learning how and when to manipulate space, like the likes of Bernardo Silva do and stuff. Because for me, it's a tempo thing. I think when you come here, rather than this guy's going to come smack into you. Like, he was getting fouled in Portugal as well. I think I'm with you on that in terms of the differences.
I think it was quite brave from Arteta as well. You got to, because if you think about it, I think Xhaka went down in the first minute. It was like really early on. And obviously he carried on for another couple, like maybe another 10, 20 minutes from there. But at that point in time, I'm not sure I thought he would be bringing on Vieira. So it must be the fact that Wolves were kind of playing that back five. They'd put Traore up front as a striker, which they don't normally do. So that kind of tells you what their plan was, which is just basically pray that they can get one counter-attack goal through Traore and nick the game. And the longer it went on, that could have happened. So I do think that maybe Arteta, had he made that call in the first minute, I'm not sure Vieira would have come on. I think after seeing a bit more of Wolves and realizing they had like absolutely no intention of building up play and actually coming to attack us, that's when he thought, okay, let's test this experiment out. I think earlier in the season, I was really keen to see both Odegaard and Vieira play in those kind of 8 positions. But I think with Zinchenko starting, that's why I call it brave, because when it's Zinchenko at left back, we've seen a lot of time, although Xhaka does play more advanced now, as you said, Adam, he does kind of go and kind of protect the back line a bit if Zinchenko's gone further up. Like they almost interchange positions quite often. So with Vieira there, it almost felt like we were just putting on another attacker, because like we had to figure out a way of how do you break down this team? Like they're just going to sit there with all of them parked up together in the box. And I think that's the kind of game where, City, you always feel like their goals are inevitable against these kind of low block teams. No matter how long it takes, they always seem patient and they just pass it around the box. And one of the stats I saw that I think is quite telling of our season is most of the teams that went on to win the Premier League in the last few years, when you look at City and Liverpool, who were dominating, they were flinging in so many crosses into the box. And we don't really seem to do that. I feel like we almost, like when you look at our kind of maps, we've seen a lot of times we get into the half space, right, Clayton, and the zone 14, and we're almost reliant more on cutbacks, I'd say. So it's like similar with Spurs, where we're trying to kind of like go around to the left and right wing from outside the box and just carve them open and wait to get that shot on goal. So I do wonder if kind of having Smith Rowe come back, I wonder if, again, he's someone who could play in that 8 role like Vieira did.
I'm glad you brought that up. Adam and I have spoken about that before.
Because I think it was Adam who put me on that. Actually, I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I remember if it was preseason, you said that you saw him potentially as, from a squad option perspective, as not necessarily taking that winger spot back from Martinelli.
Yeah, no, I just think he's got a lot. Obviously, he's a very different player to Martinelli, and what you're increasingly seeing with the way that we're deploying Martinelli on the left is he comes inside so much. He's essentially like a sort of inverted left forward, more of a striker. And I just don't see that's where Smith Rowe's kind of skill sets were when he sort of first broke into the team, but also not really where I think he's developed his game. So yeah, no, I've always seen him as more of an option in that kind of sort of 8 role, really. Yeah.
I'm the exact same. I think that's when you look at I think the biggest thing I try and do with our Arsenal team is not focus on like positions. I always just think who's got the attributes to work in this specific pocket of the pitch. And with Smith Rowe, I think of tight spaces, his dribbling, his ability to arrive in the box. And that for me screams that he would be a success in one of the 8 positions. And I think obviously, with Xhaka, like you say, he's defensively so important. He's a dual monster, right? Like, so there are elements you lose, but we had Vieira and Odegaard on the pitch at the same time, right? And it was working fine. I think you just tweak elements. I think Odegaard was dropping a little bit back. And I'd love to see Smith Rowe there. And I think the other thing Adam and I have spoken about before, which I'm on the same wavelength, is like kind of forgetting this starters and subs and kind of just focusing on minutes holistically. And I think the way, like we've seen it in Europe, how Arteta's managing that, I just think kind of look at starters and finishes, as Clive says on Arsenal Vision, right? And I think having someone like Smith Rowe coming off the bench in some games to maintain that level, where currently someone like Xhaka goes off, it may drop. Someone like Martinelli goes off, the level drops. I think just having options like that are never a bad thing. And I think people overstate how much people get unhappy when you're in a good team and they're winning and minutes are shared.
I think that's spot on, right? 'Cause do you remember, guys, when I think it was one of the games we won recently? It may have been. I'm trying to think who it was, but I think it was Turner and Ramsdale. They were like celebrating together, and like Tierney and Zinchenko were celebrating together. So it's exactly what you're saying. Like the guys who weren't playing were just as happy for the guys who did, and vice versa. It's like, even though you're competing for the same spot, all of our fringe players, when they get called upon, they, like Nelson, when he came in, they feel like they're part of that winning squad together. There's not like this alienation we've had before, where it's like a toxic element, or like we've seen at United over the last few years, where the fringe players are leaking stuff to the media, for example, because they're unhappy about being on the bench.
We saw it in our own team a few seasons, right? Remember when we scored at Palace and like half of the team went one way, half went the other? It was Yeah, Glenn, where do you see Smith Rowe? What are you excited for his return? Obviously, and where do you see him positionally?
Yeah, he's going to be like a new signing for us, I think. And like you say, just to kind of add to the depth, like, because if you look at like what City do, like they'll sign players, they'll bed them in for a year, they should have so much on the bench. Like to compete with them, who are going to be getting 90+ points a season, we've got to have a lot of options. And yeah, Smith Rowe, maybe he can be that kind of Lampard-like player, just arriving from the box, scoring goals. Because like I think last season when he was coming off the bench, he was getting quite a few goals. Yeah, I just hope we can find a spot for him in our first 11 at some point because, yeah, you worry, like, can you keep some of that talent if they're not going to be starting consistently? That's the only thing.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm overly relaxed on that stuff. But yeah, sorry, Adam.
No, I was going to say I think I'm pretty relaxed as well because if you think he was interviewed at Formula One is in, I can't remember where it is this weekend, but he was there because I think our training camp is in the same place, and he was interviewed saying he's hoping to be back for those Boxing Day Premier League games. And you think, how many of our attackers are at the World Cup and likely to go quite far? Like I don't want to see Martinelli like playing on Boxing Day against West Ham. I want him sort of resting up. He might have a little bit of a hangover if Brazil win the World Cup. Who knows? Yeah. But yeah, I think we'll have plenty of game time for him. So I'm not really certainly not too worried about him. There might be other players in the squad where I look at and think, I'm thinking of Lokonga really. He's been sounding off a bit in the media about being unhappy with his game time. And I'd be a little bit more concerned about where he's getting minutes. But no, I think someone like Smith Rowe, when players have that kind of talent and that sort of like effervescence when they've got the ball, like he gets the ball and you feel like something's going to happen.
Yeah. He gets your bum out of your seat, don't he?
Yeah, exactly. And there's always room for players like him in a side.
And I guess that segues in slightly to transfer window, does it?
Yeah, I was just going to say, because how do we see, like, say, the potential signing of like another centre mid, like a Danilo who we've been linked to? How would that impact someone like Lokonga, especially after he's already been mouthing off, right? And then he's clearly ahead of him as well in the pecking order for a lone 6 position anyway. So I know the last time we saw Lokonga, it was actually one of the 8 roles, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was who was our final European game? Was that Zurich?
Yeah, I think it was Zurich.
Brighton, was it, in the Carabao Cup he played?
Maybe in the Cup, that's what it was, yeah. Because obviously with El Neni back, now if Partey doesn't play as the 6, it seems that El Neni's the preferred one there.
Yeah, I guess, what do you guys think? I guess, first of all, we need from a squad building perspective I guess it depends on what your ambition is, really, isn't it? In terms of, like, is the goal a title challenge and that kind of feeds into what you do, or is the goal still top 4? So I guess we'll take the goals first and then what you think the transfer needs are accordingly.
Yeah, I think we can win the league this season.
Yes, Glenn, God, don't hold back.
I need an air horn sound or something.
Yeah, but I just worry about Martinelli and Saka, like one injury to them. I know Nelson came on and he was good against Forest, but like, I do worry. So I think, I know being linked with Mudryk, just someone who can play both sides would be a great addition. And like you see it all the time when teams go big in January for that one player, it always lifts the squad. But like centre mid, I haven't personally felt Lokonga's been justified in kind of mouthing out, because I don't think he's been that great when he's played. Yeah, but I wouldn't sign a replacement to block him though. I think like I'd give him this season, like when the opportunities come. Like fingers crossed he doesn't get too many because Partey stays fit. But I think we're good there. I think it is just a winger we need to get.
Okay, so just the winger for you, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, on like the kind of aims, I think you can't go into January 5 points clear and not treat January as an opportunity to say, right, yeah, we're going to push for the title. Whether you think it's realistic or not is like a different question to me. So I think we have to buy as if we think we can win the league. There's just sort of like no excuse about it. I think, like Glenn says, I think the links to Mudryk seem, whether they're realistic or not, it's clear that we need a winger. We were after Rafinha for a reason. So yeah, I think I'd like an option there. But then you think Nketiah hasn't had a huge amount of minutes, so maybe he's an option in the middle and Jesus can play out left. So we've got a little bit more versatility up there, and we've still got Marquinhos to come back from his little sort of injury setback as well, who can be an option in the Europa League and off the bench maybe. But yeah, I'm in this. I think we need a central midfielder. I think we need a long-term. I think we need a long-term six. I think we've had, obviously this season, we've had a lot of injuries in that position, and we've seen the one game that we lost was because we had to play Lokonga there, and that's not necessarily having a go at him. I just don't
more
think
the importance of Partey as well, right?
Exactly, and I also think it's Lokonga's probably not really developed his game into what Arteta and the club thought he would. Like, I think he was bought as that long-term six option,
so well.
And I just don't think he's, at least I don't think when he's played best, I don't think that's where he's performed. I think, like you were saying, Clayton, the games where he's been more of an 8, I think he's looked more comfortable, where he's able to sort of open his game up and stride forward a little bit more is where I think anyway he's showed his best form for us.
What about you, Clayton? Are you looking for a winger, a CM?
Same as Adam, really. I think, I think we absolutely need another winger, like wide forward, and another midfielder. And again, just how I'm kind of looking, I look at it as groups. So like the attacking lot, I look at it, I want 5 positions for 3, for example, but I want those 5 to be good quality, competent options. So like Reece Nelson's done well. Do I trust him if Saka gets injured for a prolonged period? I'm not so sure yet. And I think, again, maybe it's a bit naive of me in terms of like morale and stuff, but I strongly believe that sharing minutes around is so much more doable with this 5 subs. And there are games where you can afford to take Saka off at 60 minutes and the level can maintain, if not increase. And I think that is such an important thing when, I'm with Adam. I think when you're 5 points clear in in December, and whether we realistically think we can win it or not, we are in a race to have a go. Like, I don't think anyone can deny that. So I think we need a winger to kind of give us a bit more firepower, maintain levels when injuries inevitably pop up, people are struggling with fatigue. And then the midfielder thing is more, I think in the summer, I felt we needed a winger and another 8 anyway, personally. But now I'm tweaking my thinking, and similar to Adam again, like the 6, I think long term, I think El Neni was just more of a 1-year thing, keep him around the club, like have him as and when. Lokonga's not quite developing like we thought, but it's hard to get someone to just kind of come in and be like a backup for Partey, because that's the role where I don't think you share the minutes as much as I think you do in attacking spots. And that's where I think I look at it as a group, and it's like, look at the attributes of Odegaard, look at the attributes of Xhaka, look at the attributes of Partey, who can come in and kind of provide a blend of those things. So like the things you get with Partey, or the defensive qualities, how he breaks up play and then aggressively progressing through the lines. And that's where you're looking at Tielemans. Obviously, it'd come in as an 8, but can you tweak systems so that players play different roles on the pitch, but attributes wise correlate to like the system we're playing and how we're trying to play as a philosophy? I think wide forward and another midfielder for me, absolutely. How about yourself?
So for me, I think the first thing I want to say is that, just talking about title challenges and whether expectations have changed. So I'm still not getting too high on the idea of like we have a title challenge, but when you're 5 points clear going into the break, you have to treat the window like you are regardless. And one of the things I look at is, will we get this chance again in the near future? I don't know.
We're not going anywhere.
But as in right now, I would say that we are the best or the second best team in the country by a country mile.
Yeah.
So you strengthen that, then I think suddenly your odds of this title challenge that could be something we do this year become much more realistic. Whereas say you don't strengthen to that level, you wait till summer, you think, I'll wait. I guess what I'm getting at, this January is different to last January. Last January, had we gone for the stopgap options, we then wouldn't have got the great long-term options we got this summer that we wanted. This January, we already have a very good team that's first or second best in the country on performances and results. You don't strengthen this January for a title challenge. Come summer, Newcastle are getting up here quicker than people thought. Chelsea will get better eventually. They will just blow money and back their coach. And if they sack him, they'll buy another group of players for the next coach. United, they're going to be better soon too. You know, like there's a lot of these other teams. Liverpool, that inevitably someday they're going to come back, right? So I just kind of feel like while we're in this moment where we're so much better than all of those
Double
teams I
down on
mentioned,
it.
just go for it. Because you're right. Like, this is a young team, youngest manager. I'm sure we could challenge again in future years. But it's like we've got this golden path laid out in front of us where we can see the title at the end of it. And the only team I can see that could even compete with us is City. And while there's just the two of us, I feel like we have to go for it. Like we have to just, I will not be happy if we don't buy at least 2 players this January. Like I will consider that a disappointment personally.
And how many times in the past has that been our undoing? Like last January, we left ourselves short and we fell short coming top 4. And then the January, it was under Emery where we came 5th or 6th or something, and we only got Denis Suarez on loan.
I remember Denis Suarez. Yeah, we've had a few of those. When Wenger used to buy those random loanees with broken backs, they at least used to get us top 4. Yeah, Kallstrom actually got us top 4. Denis Suarez, though, he didn't get us anywhere.
Didn't he score a penalty against like Wigan in
the FA Cup semi-final? Yeah.
It was worth it just for that.
Only time he ever kicked a ball for us, I think.
Yeah.
That was shocking. And if you look at 2016, that wasn't a January window, but that year when Leicester won the title, we were the only club in Europe's top 5 leagues not to buy an outfield player.
Yeah, I forgot.
So, you like, what the fuck? Like, we bought Petr Cech and that was it. Like, I understand Wenger had a loyalty to his players. He believed the players had enough and that he didn't want to ruin the dressing room and the atmosphere of certain players feeling like they're going to get less minutes. But times have changed.
Yeah, it feels like we've got our shit together as a football club, though. Like, I put it down to since we binned off Raul Signelli, but everyone, and I guess touching on Edu's promotion the other day, like, I don't know, everyone just seems in sync. We're working to like one strategy, and even last December, I was the same. I felt it was a big mistake not getting someone, and even on a loan, I thought there'd be someone that could do a job for what we needed. I understand Nima's point on kind of not going and getting a 6 out of 10 player,
like a Vlahovic who doesn't want to come for 80 mil or something.
Like
a loan that you're saying, that's surely there was someone available on loan.
So like in previous years, I think I questioned the kind of strategy, whereas I don't have a single doubt in my mind about what they're planning now. I think it's just a case of the specificity and what they're looking for. So I think that would be the only issue.
Yeah. I just think it would be nice to have too many players for a change, rather than, it always feels like we're a bit short, but just to have, because like if you look at the games so far this season, we've had Europa group stage early in the cups or the cup. We're kind of relying on, like, we can use our fringe players, but if we want to go far in the FA Cup and the knockout of Europa, we've got to play full strength every game. So that's 30 plus games to the end of the season. Like, we're going to need a lot of depth.
Yeah, I think people talk about this being a halfway point, but it's really not. It's more like a 1/3 point. There's still 2/3 of the season to go, right? Just in Premier League games. And that's without going deep in these cups. And I don't think a lot of these fringe players that played in the cup so far are going to be the ones we rely on in the knockout rounds going forward. So, like for me, just talking of the signings that we have been linked to. So I think Danilo, he's quite young himself. So he's definitely one for the future. I don't think he'd be coming in like as a straight starting 11 player, but he would be like maybe the party understudy long term, it sounds like. Tielemans would be more as an 8, I guess. He could play there. So I don't know if we go for 2, but if we got both of those, that I would consider strengthening the midfield for a deep cup run across multiple fronts and a league title. If we just get one and it's one for the future, like a Danilo, I'm not personally convinced. Like when will he play? Like, are we going to play Danilo over Partey in crunch Premier League ties at the end of the season? Probably not. He'd be one for the future. So it's like maybe he plays in some of the earlier knockout rounds. Tielemans, he's got the Premier League experience, but we know that off the ball, maybe he doesn't have the work rate that you would expect from an Arteta team. So again, there's a few worries there. On the ball, I don't doubt his qualities.
See, I don't know. I think it would be so. I think it's so hard to judge players in different systems. I think like the spaces he'd occupy in our team would be so much shorter. Like, I don't think I always think of it as Granit Xhaka and different systems in Arsenal, right? When he had like 50 yards to cover, obviously anyone looks like a donkey defensively. But when you're because of how good Arteta has got us structurally, drilled. Like I just think those spaces, there's less for people to do. So yeah, I'm not sold on that.
But I guess it also depends on
defensive.
how much you want to be there, right? So I suppose if you're at a team that's at the time basically fighting relegation, even though you're meant to be a pretty good team as Leicester, and you're being benched. I remember there was a lot of games where he wasn't even like being started by Brendan. So maybe he wasn't happy. We know he wanted to leave. He spent all summer waiting to leave. So maybe you go somewhere where the dressing room already has this great atmosphere like ours does, and the fans suddenly show you support. Perhaps things change and you like kind of can settle in much quicker. So I do still think Tielemans would do more immediately for us either way than someone like Danilo, where I think that's maybe more long term. In terms of wingers, and to also answer Bobby's question of do you see any outgoings in January? So I think the only thing I'd seen on that note was that we are open to offers for Cedric and El Neni. Those are the only two names I've seen as potential outgoings. I don't see El Neni leaving unless we get both Tielemans and Danilo. That's why I kind of kept talking about two CMs. Like there is an opportunity here that if we let one CM go that is just really there to fill up numbers, do we get two? One immediate in Tielemans and one for the future in Danilo. What are your guys' thoughts? Would you let go of any of the players apart from those two or those two in particular?
I'm not sure, you know. I don't know what El Neni's role is behind the scenes. Like maybe he's quite a key part of the dressing room.
Yeah, I think he is. Like all the noises you hear about him.
He sounds like a top lad. Do you guys remember at the last World Cup when he tweeted a photo on a golf buggy with loads of Arsenal players and he was like, have fun at the World Cup. And then he goes, Sanchez, my friend, you're not going to the World Cup. Yeah. He was like, Chile didn't qualify. He kicked him when he was down and then like, we're going to put petrol on Sanchez there. So he's got a bit of banter, I won't lie.
Yeah, no, he does. He seems like a great guy. And given we gave him a 1-year extension, like right at the kind of last minute, I think it would feel a little bit weird if we were to sell him. I think we just keep him around. It's only 6 months left on his deal. Cedric, I think, yeah, we probably just need to bin him off at this stage. I don't think he's too happy.
He's just in the photos of the celebrations, really. That's
every single time. That guy is an absolute magnet to a camera.
Do you know what? Funny story. My mate and his girlfriend were in Oxford Street doing some shopping, and she took a photo of the Christmas lights, and Cedric and his missus were in the background of it. I was like, what the fuck? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's the chance that like someone like Holding might go if we start to sort of stop playing him in the Europa League as we start to take it more seriously. Maybe there's a chance he might head out because I think he's a decent enough Premier League centre back. Like he could probably play for like a mid-table side, someone like that. So
who are we going to bring on with 10 minutes to go?
Exactly. We need to activate the Holding protocol, and he's not there.
We just need to start bringing on Tierney to play as like a left centre back in a back five that we shift to.
Yeah,
that's the plan. That's my plan. Keep Tomiyasu and Zinchenko on and whack in another left back. We're going to become like how Southgate has like 8 right backs normally in his teams. We're going to have like 9 left backs in our team. So in every position of the pitch. In terms of wingers though, so I think there's been a lot of talk. Apparently we were interested in the likes of Zaha, not just Rafinha last summer. I know Pedro Neto, another one that it looks like we dodged a bullet the way his season's been going at Wolves so far, but he was very much someone who could play on both wings, anywhere across the front line. I do like the idea of a winger who could play either wing so that we can actually have depth on both sides. The worry is that I think with Mudryk, someone was saying in the chat as well, I think it was Pontus, he mentioned that he is perhaps more of a left wing than a right wing, where we've already kind of got Martinelli, and I know we said Smith Rowe could play more as an 8, but again, when he's back, he could play minutes on the left wing.
I'm not convinced Mudryk's our first target. Maybe I'm just being tin hat conspiracy theorist, but
I think it's smoke and mirrors, maybe.
I think we're going to go for someone that is able to play on both sides quite comfortably. Because look at the squad building. Every player we've been bringing in is versatile, can cover 2-3 different positions. And it's not, again, it's like areas of the pitch, right? So, from what I've seen of Mudryk on comps and stuff, which I think you have to take with a pinch of salt, he does very much look like a left winger. Whereas I'm not, like, my knowledge of European and world football is not the greatest to know. I couldn't pluck a name out of thin air, but I think just profile wise, I think we'll go for someone that can play on both.
So I think, is Montreal impacting the MLS or in Canada? maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
if Canada counts as the MLS, but I know that in ice hockey they kind of play American and Canadian teams play in their one world championship that only has two countries. But I won't sit here and shit on American sports. I don't want to lose more viewers. So Bobby mentions Joaquin Torres from Montreal Impact is another player that we'd be looking at. So I think I've seen links to that name as well as a potential winger. On Mudryk, I think it looks like the likes of City, PSG, there's some pretty big teams circling, and they've obviously put a valuation of 100 mil on him. He's even been interviewed about it and said, like, that's ridiculous. Like, no one from Ukraine's going for this much in our league. It sounds like he would be sold for 60 million euros if that bid came in. And there are talks that we've already begun negotiations. So I don't know, Clayton. I reckon he's our number one winger target, and Fabrizio's come out.
Is
and said
he,
that.
or does he want himself to be our number one target? Like,
No, he wants us, but it all seems very carefully planned. Like, you got Zinchenko's wife interviewing him, getting him to like come out and say that Arsenal's where he's going to come. You've got, like, how's that happened? Has Zinchenko been asking his missus to like make sure certain questions come across in the interview? It's one of those things, and also just in terms of forgetting his interview, it's the fact that Fabrizio Romano has come out and said that he is our primary target of the whole window. So now that, for me, like, that's something that's come from the club. Now, either they've said that because they're just trying to get the rest of Europe to focus on overbidding somewhere, while we then sneak in and suddenly out of nowhere, we're like, we just signed this guy and it's just someone totally unrelated, or it is genuine. So I think like that has come from the club, that info to Fabrizio, but it's just whether we're playing the kind of smokes and mirrors game here and we've got other targets, I think, maybe.
Yeah. For me, I reckon I'd sign Zaha and Tielemans because I think they're players that could hit the ground running, like they know the Prem. And I don't think the fee would be too much. Like with someone like Mudryk, maybe it's going to be competing with Martinelli for that left wing. Like maybe that won't work out. I mean, I've got bad memories of Pepe. Like the fact that we've just kind of shipped him out, no resale value. At least with Zaha and Tielemans, it wouldn't cost too much.
And we've seen what just happened with Sancho, right? So
yeah,
he's like totally been displaced by Garnacho, a guy on like 5K a week or something.
Yeah, he's literally like us with Pepe and Saka, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's literally that they've managed to find like some young kid who's played like 8 games for them, but already they're like, you know what, we need to extend his contract. And I think Sancho probably doesn't suit Ten Hag's system, it looks like. So I think that's exactly what happened with us and Pepe. I did see like poor Sancho. Obviously, I don't wish abuse on anyone, but it looks like a lot of United fans have been abusing him to the extent that I just saw yesterday he's deleted all his photos on Instagram and has 0 posts now. So that's obviously a bit unfortunate. Obviously, at the last Euros, just talking to the tournaments, we all remember how we felt when, like, I just saw some videos again that reminded me of like Saka breaking down in tears and Rashford and Sancho missing those penalties as well. And the abuse they got, all 3 of them. I remember at the time, I wished nothing more than that all 3 of them would come back and like have a great Premier League season and like put that behind them. We can obviously see that Saka did. Rashford, not so much last season, but this season he has started to look a lot better. I think he warrants his spot in the England squad. But Sancho is just, I don't know, he's just not recovered since that incident. I've not seen the Sancho that was in the Bundesliga here in the Prem at all. And I don't know if that future will be there. So I do worry about buying players from these leagues, like especially a Ukrainian league. Like surely that's worse than the Bundesliga. Yeah. And he's being quoted at the same price as Sancho was. And Sancho had like 40 goal contributions in a season there. So it doesn't always translate, as we know. And we saw that with Pepe. Only Messi and Ronaldo had more goal contributions than him when we signed him in all of Europe. So that was painful. Okay, cool. So just in terms of Holding, I just want to comment on for Holding because Bungle says maybe Fulham will bid for Holding. So I could see one of the other teams, kind of like mid-table teams bidding for Holding. I do see that. Do you think we would bring in a centre-back, or would you expect one of the young centre-backs to get promoted? We were talking about the guy at Birmingham. Is it? He's on loan? Trusty? Yeah, Trusty. Yeah. So I don't know if we have recall option on him, but he's been looking great for Birmingham. That we have other centre-backs as well that are in the academy in the under-23s, under-21s. Do you think if Holding left that we would replace him, or would we just promote from within?
I think it makes more sense to promote from within, because if you look at the profile of centre-backs we've already got, they're all pretty young. So obviously like Saliba breaking through this season, White is 24, I think. Gabriel's 26. Even Tomiyasu, who can play there, is again, I think he's like 23 or 24. So we've got a pretty like young defense already. So I think it makes sense to kind of bring someone in. I mean, if we did sign someone, it would make sense to bring them in as an understudy. But I know we've not exactly had the best history recently of sort of bringing through centre backs. Feels like it's been quite a while since we saw an academy or even an academy defender. Full stop.
Yeah.
I guess the last one really is probably Bellerin, who we sort of, and even then, I guess we kind of nabbed him from Barca at a young age. But
Last one before that was probably Ashley Cole, right?
yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah,
So
this is why I ask, because I don't think I recall a single one of our young promising centre backs. We had quite a few over the years. I can think of many over the last 10 years that I thought would maybe one day get some kind of moment to prove themselves, but we seem to have kind of sold them all on and never really brought any of them through. And the ones we did were all fullbacks. I can't think of an actual centre back that has come from our academy in my time and then made it into the team.
Trusty's an interesting one though, because like he's left-footed, so obviously Holding kind of deputises on the right centre back. He has been playing left centre back in the Europa every now and then, but I don't know, having Gabriel and Trusty, and then like who covers Saliba on the right hand side? Would it be White, Tomiyasu? But
yeah, I think White maybe. I remember all the talks at the start of the season about having Ben White play as like the Party replacement when Party's injured as the sixth. Yeah, I don't think I'd want that.
Yeah, we're always trying to move centre backs to DMs. It happened with David Luiz as well all the time. Thomas
it's
Vermaelen.
such a weird fetish, isn't it? It's like
yeah, I don't get it. Like, Thomas Vermaelen was the first one I remember. Everyone was like, "Oh yeah, let's play him as a DM." But yeah, no, I think Ben White's shown he's versatile enough at right back, and we don't need to keep trying him out in other positions.
no,
totally.
Just before we start going, oh sorry, go on.
I was going to put this last question from Bobby about does Saka being promoted from the academy as a left wing back count as a defender?
It is where he started. It is where he broke through into the team.
Yeah,
so
that's very true.
I guess so. Yeah. Although,
hopefully he's not a repeat of Ashley Cole then.
yeah. Let's not bring that up.
Yeah, no. Just before we start going on to like sort of player of the season for us and all of that sort of stuff, one question I want to ask both Adam and Glenn, because we kind of touched on it, but we skirted around it in terms of the title challenge. At what point would you think, yeah, this is a serious thing? Because for me, I think the football we play, in my personal opinion, is very sustainable. I think we can continue at this level provided we get a bit of injury luck. I genuinely believe that. Yeah. And I think if we come out of that period just after Christmas, where we've got like West Ham at home, Brighton away, Newcastle, Man United, Spurs, I think if we come out of that period and we're still ahead, I think that's when I think, yeah, shit, this could be a real possibility. Because I think City have frailties. I don't think they're the City that we've seen in the last 2-3 years personally, even though they've got that madman up front. But yeah, curious on your opinions on that.
If we get new signings and they hit the ground running, that's going to lift the squad, and I think at that point I'm going to think we can do it. But I mean, City losing to Brentford maybe does change things, but I do still think we are reliant on a De Bruyne or Haaland injury. But I think that could happen, and like if they miss one of them for a month, like that could swing it. Like, so yeah, it'll be interesting.
And yourself, Adam?
Yeah, I sort of agree with you, Clayton. I think if we come out of January and we're still in with a shout, I think then, yeah, that's when we can really start to consider it. Because it's just that sort of tail end where in January we host Newcastle, like you were saying. We must go away to Tottenham, and then we host United all in a row. That's a really hell of a run. And in a weird way, I think I'm probably most worried about that Newcastle home game.
Me too.
Because I don't really buy into this Tottenham are saving themselves for the second half of the season nonsense. So yeah, if we can come out of that sort of ideally, probably saying 6-7 points, I think I'd be pretty happy. And then that's when we can start to, not that we don't already consider ourselves in with a shout, but when we think, hey, no, we actually really, really genuinely could do this.
Yeah. And yourself, Mr. Pessimist?
I'd been saying like March or April, hadn't I, for a while. I'm basically looking
fucking
for
get
those, like
14 inked on you already.
it's like once I see that we've only got 5-6 games to go and there's 5 points in it somewhere, either second or first ending, then I believe no. I think yeah, the signings make a massive difference. Actually, I hadn't thought of that, Glenn. That's a really good point. If we show that we have the intent and we go in and we go get the players we need to strengthen, and then I think that period that Adam and Clayton talked about, we get to February. For me, it's the Man City game in a weird way, because that City game will be slotted in around that time as well, maybe February.
Shit, didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So I think you get out that run with 6-7 points, like Adam was saying, then you face Man City. I think that game, it will be a year since we played them at the Emirates when we looked really good that game. And I want to see how far we've come since then. I want to see Saliba against Haaland. I'm so excited for that fixture, just for pure footballing reasons, to see the matchups across the pitch. I do think that City will drop points to teams that people don't expect them to more often than they're expecting them to. So I do think there is an opportunity for us. I also don't know if we can maintain the kind of speed with which we're getting points right now. So
I think we can if we keep injuries.
I don't know. So we're on course for a 100-point season, which is the most City have ever got. So like I'm not sure.
I don't believe we'll do that. I just
that's what I mean. I don't know about that pace. Like if we can get 90, yeah, sure, maybe we can win a title. But like at the current course, we are like 1 loss, 1 draw in 14. That is just, I don't even know what to say. We said it's the best start we've ever had in our club's history. Pep came out with an interview recently. He said the analyst told him at City that it's City's best start in 5 years to a Premier League campaign. And then he concluded to say, and Arsenal have been even better than us. So like City have not been bad. City have been pretty good. The one thing that gives me hope is City have only played 2 of the traditional top 6.
Yeah.
And we've played everyone but City. So they're going to have to play a couple more games than us against the kind of top 6. We obviously have our 2 ties against each other. So I just feel like we need certain teams to do us some favors there. But I'd say maybe mid-Feb, once that City game happens, if we're still within 5 points of them, even in second place, I think we can get that points back. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because I didn't expect this season to be like this. I was hoping for a Europa League like cup run, maybe try to win the trophy, get into top 4. Now I'm starting to think, what would we do? What would Arteta do if, you're in the semi-final of the Europa and then you've also got a title challenge on the line and you don't have a very deep squad? What do you do? Which one do you prioritize? It has to be the Premier League, right?
Yeah, let's deal with that when we get there.
I was going to say, let's cross that bridge.
Let's hope we get there. So just in terms of a couple of comments in the chat, I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys. So it's actually about Ndidi as competition for Partey. He is relatively young himself. So Olowerson says he's about 25, 26. So it's interesting you bring up Ndidi's name because just yesterday I was thinking that what happened to him, because I'm like, in my head, he was one of the top players in the world in his position in terms of like ceiling and talent when he first broke out. It doesn't seem to have been going so well for him. He basically, there was a period where if Ndidi played, Leicester win. If Ndidi didn't play, they lose. It was like, he was like their party, basically, like in terms of like how vital and pivotal he was to that squad. Whereas now, he's just become like a bit part player for them. And I don't know if that's a systems thing, Clayton, where like you come into a more settled squad. Does he then kind of trot on and become as good as he could have been? But there was a period where he was honestly Leicester's best player, like for a couple of seasons, I think. And he just seems to have completely tailed off. So I don't know if you guys have seen Ndidi more recently than I have. If you can maybe point to like what's gone wrong there. Is it just that the system changed? Is it that he's not happy there? Or has he just not been as good as everyone thought he would be to start with?
I think he had a big issue where Leicester went through that spell of just having so many centre-backs injured and he had to deputise at centre-back. Like I seem to remember for maybe 5 or 6 games he was playing at centre-back, and that's just like a completely different position from where he was normally operating. But yeah, I know what you mean, Nima, because there was that, maybe it was the summer before last, and he was being talked about as kind of like 50, 60 million pound move to someone like City or a Man United. He was getting sort of touted as a move for a Champions League kind of regular club. So yeah, I think as with Leicester, their form has sort of hit a little bit of a downturn. He's had that positional move to centre back. Everyone at Leicester, basically apart from Maddison, I think this season has kind of had big dips of form pretty consistently. So yeah, I think it's still a quality player in there. I just don't know whether. Yeah, I think maybe there's a few more concerns around the consistency of his performance, because like we've got a player in his position who is pretty regularly like an 8 out of 10 at the moment. And I just don't know if I want to put the entire base of a midfield around someone who's had that kind of patchy history of late.
He had some injury issues as well, from what I recall. There was a lot of times where he was out and then, he'd come back and he'd be out again. So at 25, 26, I do think that he's obviously probably more experienced. He has the Premier League, experience under his belt compared to someone like a Danilo. But I just feel that maybe Danilo has more of a longer term, brighter future if we can get him in early and get him, gelling into the system we plan to play long term. I'm not sure if I'd be going for Ndidi. I'm not sure Leicester would sell him, to be honest, either. But
well, especially as like all the links so heavily with us going for Tielemans over the summer, it's like, I know this isn't really how football works, but you would think if we were looking at like a Leicester midfielder, then something would have come out about Ndidi if there was kind of any interest there at all.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on Ndidi, Glenn? Otherwise, we'll go on to something else.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say about the contract, because I think Tielemans is out of contract maybe this summer, so he'd be quite cheap. Whereas Tielemans, I imagine they'd price him quite highly.
You mean Ndidi, right?
Oh yeah, Ndidi.
Yeah. They're just double checking. I agree. I think that they'll probably try to price us out like they did. Like, look how much they tried to price Tielemans. They wanted 40 million for him with a year left.
That's crazy.
So that all broke down. Bobby, just in terms of wrapping up the idea of like where we are and if we believe in a title challenge yet. So he adds to this that he's dreaming of a title challenge, but realistically, I think second in the league, automatic Champions League qualification, and winning a cup would still be a brilliant season. I think that was the hope pre-season, not second, but just getting top four. So if we can get second and have a gap between us and third and still win a trophy and be back in the Champions League after so long, that would be amazing. What do you guys think of, on that note, Martinelli's interview with the Player Tribune? So it feels like an 8-minute interview of his journey from when he was like a young teenage boy.
I've not actually watched it yet.
It's honestly so heartwarming. It's a story of persistence and rejection and still fighting, ultimately ending in his kind of call up to the Brazil squad. And he talks about how the World Cup and playing for Brazil is every Brazilian's dream. Like that, I think we spoke about this tonight. For some players, like winning the Champions League is their ultimate dream. For Brazilians worldwide, being in your national team at a World Cup, there is no bigger honor than that. And he's managed to make it at such a young age, which I am so happy for him.
Yeah, I haven't seen that interview either, actually. I must have a look at that. But I think I saw something about he was rejected by Barcelona, rejected by Man United. So it is, a great story. And fingers crossed he can get some minutes for Brazil.
Yeah, his journey's been incredible for us, isn't it? Literally plucked him out of nowhere, and then having such a key role in the team. Obviously had a bad injury, and top player.
I think he was in like the second division or third division of Brazil in the youth team of a club down there. So it's a long way to come. But he met the likes of Pogba, he met Ibrahimovic, he trained there with them in the United's training. He went to Barca, he trained there, he became friends with Ansu Fati, he talks about. They were there together for 15 days. It's honestly like from the age of 13 to 17, he was kind of told that he would go to United when he turned 18. And he trained and kept going back every summer to play with them. And then one day his agent just says, oh, that's not happening anymore. And then he was like, okay, like I've spent like 5 years preparing for a Premier League move from Brazil. And now I've just been told like I'm not going to the Premier League. For a lot of players at that age, I can imagine mentally that would knock you down. You knock your confidence. Maybe you don't feel like you can get up in the morning. You be a bit mild depression maybe, and you can't carry on at that level. He then went and trained and trialed at Barca, got rejected again. In the end, they didn't want him either. And then suddenly we've come in and made him one of the most important players in our entire starting 11. So pivotal to our system. And thanks to that, he's managed to get into the Brazil World Cup squad. So that's amazing. The reason I brought him up, though, just to wrap that part up, is in his interview, he basically said, like, look, like, what is all this bullshit? Like, about Arsenal getting top four. He's like, that is not the club we are. He goes, he's like, I want to win fucking Premier Leagues with Arsenal. I want to win Champions Leagues with Arsenal. I'm not interested in getting top four. I want to win everything. And I thought, that is what I want to hear. That young kid, having gone through the journey he has, I hope he goes and wins the fucking World Cup with Brazil and comes back a World Cup winner. And then he takes us to a Premier League title and Champions League title one day, inshallah. So that's kind of what I got from the interview, that we have some young players with huge ambition. They're not like, maybe us as fans, we've become jaded. We're praying for top four before the season began.
Yeah,
I don't think our players think like that.
No,
I think our players have no fear.
The mindset behind the scenes, they're absolutely talking about what they need to do to win the league. Like, it's just, as fans, we've got more like emotional investment, right? And we've been hurt. And so I think, yeah, that's the difference. But I've got no doubt behind the scenes, like even going into the season, I don't know, God knows. I don't think they were just talking about top four as the ceiling. No way do I believe that. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Martinelli, because that feels like quite a nice segue. Obviously, he's been one of the most important players. I think a nice way to kind of head towards the end of this is wrap up of like who's been our player of the season so far, disappointments. What was you said dark horse earlier, right? Like, so I guess most surprising one.
Yeah, someone who surprised you the most. Yeah.
Yeah. So go on, Adam. Who's been your Arsenal player of the season so far?
Can I
It's
name
hard to
all
pick
of them?
one, right? Yeah.
You can give a short list if you like a top three, maybe like gold, silver, bronze.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Right. So if we're doing that, I'd say gold, I think is probably, I think it's Ødegaard, only just because I think what we saw in that kind of loan spell was, I think, some of the sort of best sort of creative football we've seen at Arsenal in quite a while. And it's just the way he does it. He's so dynamic. He's got so many attributes to his game, and the way he dictates the tempo of a midfield is, for someone who's still relatively young, and after all the kind of rejection he went through, or the difficulties he went through rather at Real Madrid, I just love watching him play. He's just such a sort of majestic maestro in that midfield. Then Silva, I think Martinelli, definitely. I think coming back, like you say, Clayton, from that injury, I was a little bit kind of like, okay, will it take him some time to sort of get back up to speed? But he's just, every single game, he seems to get better and better. And I think he's now a player. There are very few players in the league I think opponents fear, but I think Martinelli has to be one of them. I think if you're an opposition fullback, you're terrified of coming up against him with all the kind of different attributes he has. And then bronze, I think I'd probably say Ben White. I guess he could be maybe categorized as that sort of dark horse, like you were saying, Nima, or someone who surprised you. But I think I've been so impressed with how he's adapted to playing right back. And I think he's not just adapted to playing a different position, but he's adapted to playing it differently. I think he's now so much more threatening in the final third. I think his link-up play with Saka has improved so much. He just seems like a great guy as well. I like his kind of no-nonsense attitude. And like you see in the Chelsea celebrations where he like flicks the ball up at Ødegaard's head and then walks off as if he hasn't done anything. I just really, really like the guy. He seems like a great character.
Nice. And then I guess, your surprise one before we go on to Glenn's.
It seems a bit silly to say Saliba was a surprise, because I think we all knew he was really, really highly rated. And I think if there was going to be anyone to like break into the Arsenal team, it would have been him. But I mean, we can't forget that's what he has done. He has broken into the Arsenal side. He wasn't at least I didn't know for sure if he would be a certain starter at the beginning of the season. I think it's only that Tomiyasu injury in those opening weeks that meant White shifted to right back and the centre back spot opened up. And yeah, like you were saying earlier, Nima, I can't wait to watch him up against Haaland. The kid is just like ice cold. He's sort of like, I think I have said before, he's like, he can like pop a collar on a V-neck shirt. He's just so cool in the way he plays. Even if he has every now and then shown a kind of a little moment of a lapse of concentration or something like that, he's just got the mentality to come back from it. And yeah, he's just, very rarely do I get excited watching a centre back, but Saliba is just the kind of guy that just excites me to watch.
It's mad and easy to forget how young he is. Like you talk about the lapses of concentration. That is something that is just part and parcel and which should be expected at that age. But because he's raised the bar so high, you do forget, like he's someone that's playing like he's a 26, 27-year-old that's been around for years. He is scary.
And he's probably going to start for France in the World Cup. He's probably going to be a starting centre-back for reigning World Cup champions and someone who's like up there with the favourites. It's his progression in this season alone has been so impressive.
Nice one. And then Glenn, over to you. Who are you going?
I guess surprise, I'd probably be Xhaka, to be honest. Just the way that he's kind of made that position his own, late runs into the box, helping with attacks. Just been fantastic, I think. And long may it continue. Like, I know he's getting on a bit, but hopefully he's still got two or so years at the top of us, because I feel like if he can stay at Arsenal and play at this level, he can play for us for a while. Dark horse, I'd say probably Ben White. Like, because at the start of the season, when I saw him at right back, I was like, oh, he was good last season, and now he's at right back. Is this kind of him slowly getting out of the team? Is he going to be on the bench? Is Tomiyasu going to win that place? But he's just made that position his own. And the way he gets up and down as well, he's obviously had to improve his fitness to do that. So, like, fair play to him. He looks class. And just, like, our backline in general, like, historically, we've been quite porous. Like, but now we seem like, oh, we can keep anyone out. Like, you saw with a clean sheet against Chelsea. But yeah, like you say, Adam, the whole first 11's been outstanding. Like, I want to name them all. But in terms of like who's performed above expectations, I think Saliba, like being in the French league, you don't know how you can transition, but he's honestly like he's so much better than someone like Van Dijk, which is just crazy to say, but it's true. And like people say, like Van Dijk defends with his aura. I think that's probably the same with Saliba now. He can literally just get in the heads of the opposition forward and just control them. Like, you see the way he like shoulder barges people off the ball, and it's like he defends before there's even a chance for the attacker to do something. Like, they've already lost the ball. Yeah. So I just hope we can keep him for a long while. Yeah, like, because he's outstanding.
So would you say Saliba would be your number one, like, gold player of the season?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So far, yeah.
Nice. And who would you put at second and third as like a kind of also outstanding performance so far?
Yeah, I'd say second Xhaka, and very tight third Ben White.
Nice.
What
about you, Clayton?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, just echo what they say. I just want to pick like 7 or 8 of them, really. Well, yeah, it's mental. I think my surprise one is Ben White, I think, in terms of how well he's adapted to that right back role. I thought he'd do the inverted job, no problem. I just didn't see the kind of up and down that he's got and the durability. And I think his intelligence has never been in question. But like Adam said, the way he's just kind of taken to it and linking up with Saka, Odegaard, and Arteta, you can tell he's like Arteta's little pet along with Odegaard, and like he really, really rates him and he can just depend on him. So I think he surprised me in terms of how well he's transitioned into that right back role. Then gold, silver, bronze. I think gold for me is probably Saliba. I think he has just been crazy good. I think I was similar to Adam when he came in, and what Glenn was saying about the French league. Like, I think you could tell there was something there, right? Like something special, but you're always a little bit skeptical. And then again, coming in, I didn't think he'd absolutely lock it down. I think when I was looking at Gabriel White, how solid that partnership was, I thought Saliba would be eased in maybe. And then, like you said, the Tomiyasu injury potentially opened that up, and he stamped his authority down. And I feel like he is just growing each game. And again, the aura thing, you do feel that when there's a duel, like you feel comfortable. And I always talk about it if teams manage to get through us and there's a foot race, I feel so comfortable watching him covering the space there. He has just been phenomenal. And even his ability on the ball, like Ben White set the bar quite high on that last year. And he's just, him and Gabriel are progressing the ball really nicely. He's going to be a scary talent if he continues on this trajectory. Silver for me is Odegaard as well. I think Adam may have had him first, but he's on a podium finish for me. His if I could just take the words out of Adam's mouth, what he's said about him, and just reuse that, he's phenomenal. And when we're against low blocks, I feel really comfortable now. I just think the way he manipulates the ball, shifts their structures, he's so intelligent. And it's nice to see him getting a bit of output to go with it as well. Like, he's our top goal scorer in the league, right? So I think that was a conscious thing that last year you could see, like, Xhaka was pushing up into the box the back end of last year. It's just the output wasn't really coming with it. And you can see as a team, we're chipping in goals from all over to kind of aim towards that 90-100 goal season that Arteta speaks about. And then, on the other side of midfield, I think Xhaka's my third, to be honest. Again, he was doing the runs into the box last year, but I think just where we are as a team and how he's kind of so important to the dynamics on that left-hand side, and his maturity in the team, and winning the second balls and everything. He feels key to absolutely everything we're doing. But it's mad. I've said 3. I think we've all not even touched on Jesus, and it's like that just says so much about the level of this team. But it's hard to leave people out. But I think that's my 3. What are yours?
Yeah, no, I'm really struggling for 3. I've changed them about 5 times since I've been listening to your ones, because there's people I've left out that you guys have then mentioned, and I thought, they do deserve to be there, don't they? It's tough. I'll go with my surprise of the season first, and that gives me buys me some time to order my other 3. So I think surprise of the season is a strong one between 2 for me. One of them is obviously Ben White. I feel like he deserves a strong mention here. I think I did not know he was capable of even playing as a fullback, let alone at this level. And I think when we started the season, one of the things we noticed was he was getting subbed quite early on, and he was also giving days off from training. And part of that was apparently so that he could adapt physically to the more demanding athletic needs of this role at right back compared to where he used to play. He seems to have kind of got through that period, and now he's playing, as I would say, one of, if not the best right backs in the Premier League so far this season.
So. Quite comfortably,
I think there's 2 other right backs who play at his level so far, and they're Trippier and Dalot. But again, if you're an Arsenal fan, you're going to say Ben White's been the best right back in the league. So that's what I'm going to say. But I'm also going to just put 2 names in so I don't sound too deluded. So I think we'll go with him as the surprise. It's a weird one because I did want to put Jesus in as a surprise, but I'll give it to Ben White. I'll put Jesus on my podium instead. So I'll explain that part later. So let's go from gold first. So I think for me, you could have probably told from the way I spoke about Martinelli earlier that I have a very strong love for him. So I'm going to go for Martinelli as my gold player, just because he's someone who I backed relentlessly all summer. There was so much debate in the FPL communities, about why are you buying him? You should buy Saka. He's 6 mil. Like, it's not worth the saving, and he's going to be rotated, and he's going to be benched, and all this shit. And the reality is, he is incredible. Like, I honestly, I feel like Klopp when I talk about. I feel like Klopp is the person who understands my feelings to Martinelli best, right? 3-4 years ago, when Martinelli was an 18-year-old kid, Klopp was like, "This is a talent of a century." I feel that exact same way that Klopp feels. Like, I don't know how we got him. And it's just the way he talks about the club. He has said multiple times over the last year that he wants to stay here for the rest of his career. He says, as long as Arsenal want me, I will stay till the day I stop playing football. How could I not love him when you combine his enthusiasm for the club alongside the level he's played at all year long? He has been destroying opposition fullbacks. They are having nightmares going to bed at night. So, I'm excited to see how he develops. He's definitely my gold. I'm going to go a bit different to everyone else because I feel like all those players, they warrant being there, but there's maybe 7-8 players who could be in the top 3. So I'm just going to add in 2 players that we've not necessarily talked about as much so far, just so they get their kudos as well while we're here. So I am going to go for Jesus as my second player, just because I feel that I didn't expect him to bring everything else he's brought to the game that we've seen. So, like, just in terms of like what he does off the ball, I feel like his kind of defending from the front line is what dictates the entire play of our team. If you kind of just look at the stats perspective, he now has more touches in the opposition box than Lacazette did the whole of last season. And that's in 14 fucking games. Like he has changed Arsenal as a team and the way we play and everything we do. I think we've seen in the last few games, I'll be looking at someone coming and defending in our fullback position, like a right back or left back. And I'm like, oh, who's that? Like, who just like tackled the opposition? And it's Jesus. He covers the entire pitch. He is everywhere, either dropping deep to get the ball, trying to, invite on 2-3 players to open up space for others. His dribbling and close control is way better than I knew. And I think the goals will come. Like, his XG per 90 is up there at the top of the league. He's been unfortunate. Maybe it's hit his confidence a bit. But this happens to strikers all the time. And then they come out of it, and then the goals come again in flood. So I'm expecting him to turn this around. I just think that without him, I don't think we play the way we do. That's how, I put down our entire dominating style down to him. So for me, he has to be silver. And then bronze, this is a tough one. I won't say Xhaka, even though he is up there. I'm going to go for Thomas Partey, just because the only game we lost in the league this season was the one where he didn't play in the lone six. So
I didn't even think of him when I was doing he's been unbelievable. Yeah.
Like he just seems to take on so much of a demanding role. Like if you look around the Premier League, I'm not convinced I can think of any other player who plays the role that he does in the way he does. And like people used to compare him to the likes of, say, Fabinho, Rodri, these guys. I think in terms of what he does for our team, like he is the best in the league at it. And we saw what happened last year towards the end of the season where we lost him and Xhaka had to play further back to accommodate for that. That essentially cost us top 4. And again, I just feel that that's why I'm so keen that we do get a centre mid this January and let them be his understudy and prepare for a life without him in the future. Because like you, Glenn, I actually think Xhaka can go a couple more years at this level. He's playing the best football of his life so far. And he says he feels he's learning new things still today and getting better. So he himself is saying that he could go for a few more years.
He looks so I don't know how to word it. He just looks so strong and powerful, Xhaka, as well. I think he's got a couple of years in him as well.
So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of Xhaka for the years ahead. With Partey, my worry about him is, as important as he is, and as much as I've put him on a podium finish, I think we've spoken about this before, Clayton, where he hadn't ever done 10 games in a row for us. And after a few years of being at the club, that is not great. That is worrying. If he's almost like the closest thing we have to a single point of failure in our entire squad, and we can't get 10 game spells out of him before injuries, that's not ideal. So I hope he stays injury free. I think him being injury free is probably one of the most important things in terms of if a title challenge does get mounted. And then also just to bring up in the chat, we've got Ola Wilson's given his top 3. So he's gone Odegaard for bronze, Granit Xhaka for silver, and then gold for Partey. And he obviously said the same thing about if we lose him, we basically our season might end kind of thing.
None of us have even mentioned Saka, right? This is what the level of this team.
It's as soon as you guys started talking, I was like, I can't believe I haven't even said Granit Xhaka. It's because there's, and you can't even argue with the players that each of us have picked, because it's you could pick pretty much any of the sort of 15 or so players who have been starting this season. You could put them in there. I'd be like, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
Great. It's great to have so many players on top form, and I guess that kind of is why we are where we are.
Yeah, no, I think definitely in terms of, I don't want to end it on a sour note, but is there a disappointment of the season so far for you guys?
No, why would you ask that?
No, I think when we talked about players that we could potentially be willing to or think could leave in January, the ones that are going to leave or could leave in January, that maybe gives an insight into the ones that we don't quite consider as part of the squad in a core way, the likes of Cedric, for instance. I'm sure none of us would be too upset to see him go. But yeah, I like your idea, Clayton. What about room for improvement? So rather than disappointment, more of a ones that you think could realistically in the second half of the season play a big part in what we need to do with the big games and thick games coming. The congestion is going to be even worse coming out of the World Cup than it was going into it. So who do you think has room for improvement and can be a big part of what we do in the next part of the season?
I think in terms of like character and connection with the fans, I think Ramsdale's maybe the best in the squad at that. But I think maybe I'm holding him to a too high a standard. But I think some of the goals we've conceded, I think, could he have done a bit better? Like one against Southampton, I think that was like a bird
Bloody
just
pigeon.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that distracts him a little bit. But I think, could he have made like a save that would have then won us a few points? I think like if he ups his game second half of the season, I think that'd be really key.
Yeah, I think I could see that for Ramsdale. I think probably Tierney is the one that sticks out to me. It's not even necessarily that he's been underwhelming when he has played. It's just, again, it's the character. I really like the way that he plays. He's he never walks onto a pitch and gives less than 100%. And I kind of just really want him to stay injury free and get a bit more of a consistent run in the side. And obviously the only reason he's not had that so far is because Zinchenko's been good when he's come in, and Tomiyasu has been playing well at left back when he's had to. He's one I maybe worry about a little bit, could feel a little bit like his nose has been put out of joint if he's seeing Zinchenko being signed in the summer and then a right back being moved to left back ahead of him. And I just like him so much as a player. I want to see him play for us more because I think he's top class.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. I think, I wouldn't be surprised if we move on from Tierney in the summer, which really upsets me. And because I've got a real soft spot for him. But yeah, I think what you said, like with how well Zinchenko's doing there when Tommy plays there, Tierney is learning that role, but you can just tell the level of comfort on the ball in central zones. Some are just suited and more comfortable than others. But I like those shouts. I don't disagree, Glenn. I think Ramsdale has been better the last few weeks, but there have been the odd moment where I think he could have done better. But again, I think similar to Saliba, I forget how young this guy is, and like goalkeepers, like to be performing at this level in one of the best teams in the country at that age is, credit to him. But I think there's room for improvement from him as well, which I think will come with his trajectory and development. I really do.
Yeah, no, I think Ramsdale definitely, from a goalkeeper's peak age perspective, he's a solid 4 or 5 years from the peak age of a goalkeeper. Like, he's not even close. So we forget how much football he's played and the experiences he's had. I think we spoke about this before, Clayton, where there's certain players that they have like the golden carpet path all the way to the top, like say like an Mbappe. Then you've got other players who go through hardship. And I do think that when they come out the other end of it, they kind of maybe arrive a bit later at the top level, but they're much better for it. So these kind of players where, say Martinelli, you've gone through that hardship along the way. I think it really shapes the character they have and the way they play and the way they apply themselves in game. And with Ramsdale, it's similar, right? Like he was player of the year for like 3 years at every club he played for before us, but every single one of them got bloody relegated. That is an experience for a young player to go through. Like for a goalkeeper of that age to play however many hundreds of first team games of football in a men's dressing room he has, that's very rare for a goalkeeper. So although I do really hope that there is improvement, I'm not certain it's an immediate improvement. I think we're still years from his peak.
Yeah.
I just hope those lapses in concentration maybe become less frequent in the second half of the season. And that would go a long way even just now for us. For me, my player has to be Eddie Nketiah. I do have a lot of love for him. I think if we go deep in competitions, he is going to need to kind of come back and show us what we saw when he got a good run of games towards the end of last season that earned him that new contract. I don't think he's necessarily underperformed, but earlier in the beginning part of this season, I felt that when he was coming on as a sub in the Premier League, we looked so much better as a team. We looked more electric. We looked like we were creating more chances. There was one game where he came on even as early as 60 minutes. I think it was after Mitrovic scored because Gabriel was just dawdling on the ball. And as soon as Eddie comes on, like we look better. But in the last few games, especially in some of the starts, like I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because he's playing with a kind of an unsettled 11. He's not playing with the first 11. Like imagine you have your first 11, you put Eddie in instead of Jesus. Maybe Eddie looks a lot better, right? Being around.
Yeah, that's what I say all the time. Yeah, I think that makes a big difference.
So I think that's partly why maybe that I think he could do with some improvement, but equally he's also a very young player. And again, we forget that there are very few centre forwards, bar Haaland, playing at that level at that age. So I'd like to see more from Eddie, and I hope that he's picking up some things from Jesus in training. And 2 years ago, I thought he was just a poacher. Last year, he proved me completely wrong and showed he's got much more complete level to his game. So I just want to see him kind of, again, trot on and continue improving in the trajectory we saw at the end of last season. And I think that's going to be vital if we're going deep in other cups in the second part. What about you, Clayton? Is there anyone apart from Eddie, Ramsdale, and Tierney?
I agree with everyone you said. I think mine's Lokonga. I think really highly of him, and I think I'm probably I'm wedded to the idea of what he could be too much, rather than the reality of what he is sometimes. And I think, when he was kind of bought as that long-term understudy, completely buy into that. You can see what they're thinking, but I do think he needs to take a bit more responsibility. Sometimes I get it's difficult when you come into these rotated teams and you're playing with a complete second string 11. You've got half an hour to show what you can do. I do get that, but I think those are where, especially in the Europa League, you have to grab that opportunity with two hands and demonstrate, look, you can trust me. Like, be aggressive on the ball. Like, it's high risk, high reward the way Partey plays, but go for it. At least try something. I feel like that intensity is just not there, and the kind of defensive awareness. It's like you see him so often jogging back, and that kind of nous for knowing where a situation's going to be before it happens. All the players talk about that, and Arteta, right? He tells them what's going to happen on the pitch before it happens, and I think you have to be quite a high IQ player to be of success in this team, and he obviously is, right? Like, he was the Anderlecht captain at such a young age, but I think for me, it's more because I think he will have a very good career. I'm just not so sure it will be with us right now with where things are at. And I do think there's a player there. I really do. But I think he needs to show a lot more. And I think it was Glenn said earlier, like, when you're mouthing off in the press, like, you need to be backing that up. And like, okay, mouthing off sounds a bit harsh. I understand you're frustrated. You're not playing. Like, you didn't get called up to the Belgian national team, but has he done anything to kind of warrant that other than previous accolades at Anderlecht? Like, what has he done at Arsenal that's kind of warranted that? So
I worry a bit about whether his mentality might see him go the way of a Maitland-Niles. I do worry.
Yeah.
Because Maitland-Niles was probably, again, another one of the last academy players that came through and broke into the defense, as we were saying. And in a very weird way, he wouldn't look so out of place in the current inverted fullback role that we play.
Do well, yeah.
It's exactly what he always wanted, right? Like, if he hadn't burnt all these bridges, like, he would be a fullback technically, but really he'd be playing in centre mid. And I don't know what he was thinking, but again, I see some of those attributes of the kind of I don't want to call them lazy, but they just don't look as bothered sometimes on the pitch. Ozil was like that, but it didn't mean he wasn't a great player, right? Sometimes maybe body language, we read too much into it. Maybe some people just look miserable all the time. I don't know. But I had huge hopes for Lokonga as well. That's why I just wanted to touch on this, because I think it was his manager, right? Company said that, like, when he spoke to Arteta, they spoke about him as being like the next Yaya Toure. Like, the guy has a huge ceiling, and like, it just doesn't look like that is the player that we're seeing. And he's not. I think it was in the All or Nothing interview. Was it him or Nuno Tavares? One of them. I think it was Lokonga at the lunch table complaining about
that. Yeah, was like, "Oh, you were always smart." Yeah,
he was like, Lokonga was like, "Oh, why are you upset?" Or Nketiah was like, "Oh, why are you upset?" And I was saying, "Oh, I want to play more." And Nketiah was like, "Yeah, we all want to play more." It's like,
he was like, "You're not the only one." Yeah.
It was like the South London in him. He was like, "Yeah, so do we, bruv." Like,
yeah. So yeah, I think maybe it doesn't help that he came in at a time when he was supposed to be slowly bedded in. Like we said, what we saw with the City teams, where players come in and spend a year gelling.
But that's where I look at that as an opportunity. Like, some people look at that, oh shit, he's been flooded. But I think that is where you go in and you like show, I can do this. Like, that's how you get your opportunities, right? When there are injuries, I don't think it should be.
But I guess that's what I'm saying. I feel like it's unfortunate in the sense that those injuries came way too soon in his career at Arsenal. Yeah. So, like, we all forget he actually looked okay at the start of the last season when he was starting games. Like, we all kind of liked him. It was later on, once Partey got injured and he got asked to be the lone six pivot, that role just wasn't for him. And then El Neni took it over from him, basically. And part of me again thinks that look at Thomas Partey. It took him 18 months at Arsenal to play the lone six the way he does for us now. And he came in as arguably like a world-class CM who was winning stuff at Atletico. And it took him as an experienced international captain of his nation 18 months at Arsenal to play that role. And then we've got Lokonga coming to a new country in his early 20s. And suddenly it's like, you need to do exactly what Partey was doing in the team. We're not going to change your role. We're not going to change what you're required to do. You just need to be a like-for-like swap. And obviously it became a car crash and he got taken out of the team. So I think it's that side of it for me. And it's like the mentally strong players, they will learn from that and come back stronger. My worry is he mentally strong enough? And is he actually potentially going to end up not making it because he's not mentally strong enough to deal with what happened there?
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we're at the 90-minute mark. Should we look to wrap up? But
we'll get us out of here. Yeah,
some World Cup predictions. Who are your winners?
Ooh, that would be good, guys. Yeah, we'd love to hear what you guys think for the
Don't say Iran. That would be biased.
I'll keep it short then. So I think Brazil probably favourites. I think they're pretty widely touted. France's sort of recent spate of injuries.
I didn't realise how bad they hit.
Yeah, no, Benzema and Kunku, obviously Kante, Pogba, got Varane. I think
Kimpembe as well.
Kimpembe, so
I think those injuries probably stop them from being my favourites. And then Argentina seemed like a decent shout as well. But yeah, I think Brazil to win it for me.
You strike me as someone that would have a little dark horse. Anyone you got your eye on?
Yeah, no, I do. I think Denmark they look a decent side. Obviously keeping some of that good momentum on from the Euros. I think they beat France in the Nations League as well. They always seem to have a pretty good matchup against them. I back Switzerland to do pretty well as well. They always seem to perform at international tournaments. And then I really wanted to back Cameroon, but that, I guess maybe some of their group is a little bit difficult. They've got Brazil and Serbia, don't they? Are they in that group?
Sure, need to check.
Have a look, but I know Serbia is not a walkover themselves either. Yeah.
No, yeah. So, I think probably dark horse Denmark, I'd say, if that's not too mainstream.
Cameroon are with Brazil, Serbia, and Switzerland. So
that's a tough group.
A tasty group. Those ones. That's one of the groups where I'll be tuning into every game because I think
I'll be enjoying watching that.
Yeah, they'll all be really interesting.
Nice one, Glenn. Are you going for?
I mean, I'd love to see Argentina and Messi win it, but I'm going to go for an outsider. I think after Ronaldo did that interview, his contract's going to be done now. He's got to do some talking on the pitch. And I remember when Portugal won the Euros in 2016 against the world, just playing anti-football. So I'm going to say they're going to win it.
Nice, interesting. That's a very rogue shout. I like that. And have you got your eye on
I was going to say, don't worry, I won't say Iran when it comes to me.
Oh, yeah, dark horses. I would like to say Denmark, but I think they're actually so good now that they probably aren't a dark horse. But the recovery arc from Eriksen having the cardiac arrest and then winning it would be outrageous. So I'm going to say that. Nice
one. Go on, Nima. Who are you going for?
I think it has to be Brazil for me. As much as I love a fairy tale and an underdog story, I just think they have too much. They're just such a stacked team. The players they didn't take would walk into most international teams' first 11s. They are a scary team. So I think I would like to see a final Brazil-Argentina. I would love to see that as the final. My dark horse, I don't know if you can call them a dark horse with their previous caliber in tournaments, is Spain, but I'm not sure
that's not a fucking dark horse.
But if you look at people's predictions for the World Cup, I know people have Spain going out in the last 16 and quarterfinals, even group stages. I think they'll be in that kind of third place playoff. Yeah, I think they'll make it to the third place playoff. I'm thinking a Spain and France third place playoff is what I'm looking at with a Brazil Argentina final. Those kind of the top 4 teams I'm looking at. So I suppose maybe they're not dark horses, as you say. In terms of a legit dark horse, I like the shout so far. I liked Switzerland. That's a really good one. I like Denmark. I'm trying to think anyone else who I could see who most people don't have their eye on.
Iran.
Well, for me, Iran just getting out of the group, that would be That would be
What
the
are
most
your? Do
successful
you think you
tournament in the
can?
history. So
What's
we've never
your-
got out of a group stage in our history. So that would be quite a big ask. But we are quite tough to beat. We play a low block. I think England will be our toughest game of the group tomorrow. I'm not as worried about the USA and Wales. I think a lot of people have written off Iran. I've seen the top 2 in that group. None of them include Iran. But when I looked at the Oxford University PhD mathematicians model, Iran was the team that qualified with England. So I'm going to back the Oxford mathematician elite and say that Iran is going to get out the group. And that's it. That's
Can
like
you
a
check their
tournament win.
title odds for Arsenal, please?
Well, this person also won FPL a few years ago, Joshua Bull. So
Is
I
it
really
Joshua
rate.
Bull?
Yeah, he actually won FPL, and he's the one who built this model. So, previous winner of FPL against 10 million other managers. I trust his models a lot.
Fair play. That's quite cool.
So and I think it wasn't even just him. I'm sure I saw somewhere else, another model somewhere on another site had Iran get out the group. But the England game is going to be scary prospect. It's going to be tough.
Good luck.
I'm not happy about that. In terms of actual, I'm just looking at the quick thing. There is another team that I really like. I just want to pull them up. I'm going to go for Netherlands. I think the Netherlands team have slowly and surely been getting better and coming back. They're a previous, obviously, international team royalty, but it has been a tough time for them of late. And I'm backing them to now that they're back in the tournament to really go for it. So I think they're like my proper dark horse.
I can't lie. Before the Mane injury, I had Senegal finishing above them in the group. It's just that, and they probably, if that injury hadn't happened, I probably would have had them as like a real dark horse shout. But yeah, such a shame to see so many players injured before the tournament now.
It's really sad, isn't it? Like they're all dropping like flies with the congested Champions League schedule that we've never had before as well.
Yeah.
What about you, Clayton, to wrap it up? Who's your top 2, top 3?
Yeah, top 2, I think Brazil, Argentina. I think I was doing one of those trees, and I think they might have to face each other in the semis if like it all goes as you think. So, but it never goes as you think. But yeah, I think Brazil or Argentina to win it. Literally 50-50. I couldn't pick one. And then my dark horse is like I've been watching loads of the Tifo videos just because, like I said, my knowledge of like worldwide football is awful nowadays. I think I'm just so Arsenal centric. That's it. But Serbia have such a good team, and like Vlahovic, Mitrovic up front. They've got Tadic in there. I can never pronounce his name. That midfielder,
Milinkovic. Like SMS, is it?
Yeah. And they've got Kostic on the wing. Like I think they could be one that I'm dark horse. Like God knows if they'll go far. Obviously, they're in that same group with Switzerland and Brazil, but I think they'll be quite an exciting team to watch, to be honest. So,
do you know who the last dark horse was that was talked about as highly as Serbia's team? Was it Turkey?
It's Turkey in the Euros.
And they got absolutely slapped. Yeah, they got destroyed. So the last dark horse that was like mathematically had the best team didn't do so well. Hopefully Serbia can surprise us against Brazil. I think Brazil will win that game, but I don't think it will be as easy as people are expecting. That Brazil are going to face a tough test in that match.
Yeah, well, and England, like not really a dark horse, but if England top the group and other groups go as it is, Senegal without Mane, depleted France, never know.
Yeah, exactly. It's all possible. I think there's talks of Southgate leaving the job regardless of what happens in this tournament. It sounds like not many England managers have been in charge for 3 tournaments consecutively. So this is already a big milestone for him. And I'm not convinced we see him for a 4th tournament in a row. Like there are managers that have, I thought, been better than him and never made it to 4. So I'd be pretty upset to see him get to 4. But I won't insult him before the tournament. I'll wait till see how we do.
Nice. Yeah, should we wrap up? Obviously, it's been quite a bumper episode. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us. It's been good. Yeah, it's been nice to just chat about Arsenal for ages.
It's like nice before we go into the World Cup. Yeah. So guys, just so everyone knows where to find you, especially the podcast listeners, we will put the hyperlinks to your Twitter profiles in both the YouTube and pod version at the top. So if anyone's looking for Adam and Glenn, you can find them there. But do please also just let them know your handles and stuff now on air in case they're listening live.
So mine is at Glenn Harriott. GLENNHERRIOT.
Nice.
Mine's at 35who, but spelled out in letters rather than numbers.
And I will definitely link these guys in case anyone who's listening is lost as to how to type these in. But I always like to put people on the spot and ask them to say their handles. We always question why did we create our handles when we did, because trying to tell someone our handle is very difficult at these meetups. People come in and introduce themselves as their handle. And funny anecdote, I met someone, he's like, my name is FPL Soggy Biscuit. And I was like, okay, damn, there's a new one I saw yesterday.
You don't want to know where that came from.
Yeah, there's a new one I saw yesterday. It was called FPL Belly Button Lint. And I was like,
interesting.
What? Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. And there's like FPL radiators, So guys, think carefully when you choose your handles. They're going to be stuck with you for a while and people are going to start calling you that by your first name. So thank you, Glenn and Adam, for joining us. It's a shame we couldn't have Bobby and Mike Halpin as well, some of our AFC audience. But
do you want to touch on what we've got coming up, actually?
Yeah, that's not a bad shout. So obviously we don't have any matches, so there won't be any kind of previews and reviews of matches going into the World Cup. But we have a few interesting specials that we want to kind of pre-record and upload. So to complement the lives we've done so far this season, there's things like an Arteta deep dive into his tactics and looking at how they've evolved from when he first arrived at the club to this season. There's going to be we're going to look at, once the group stages are done, we're going to look at the Arsenal players and how they've done with their respective teams in the tournament just prior to the last 16. So that's also going to come out in the next few weeks. We have Arsenal best 11 of the Emirates era. We have worst 11 of the Emirates era. There's a few fun ones coming out, yeah. And a lot of these are going to be like 10, 15-minute episodes. The Arteta deep dive will be much longer, but there's going to be a lot of kind of short form content.
And a Premier League team of the season so far as well, right? So yeah, bit of like in-depth stuff, bit of light-hearted stuff. So yeah, should be good.
Yeah, and that will see us through to Boxing Day, where we've actually managed to get Mike Halpin to come on and do one of the reviews and previews with me while Clayton is away on holiday, enjoying himself in, is it Goa you're going to?
Yeah, Christmas in a hot country. That's going to be odd.
I'll be very jealous. Yeah. Cool. Well, lovely to see everyone. Hopefully, once the season is over, maybe in the summer, we can also do like a end of season review like today and bring Adam and Glenn back and see kind of sound bites. I might clip sections of this episode to play on that episode just to see how right or wrong we were, how naive we were maybe. But yeah, fingers crossed. Hope it's a great World Cup tournament to everyone who's watching. And in the meantime, up the Arsenal and 5-6 more weeks at the top. And first time we're top of Christmas since, I think, the Invincible season maybe. So amazing time to be an Arsenal fan. It's so nice to meet the guys today as well.
Yeah, nice one. Cheers for coming on, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for coming on,
up the Arsenal.
Guys. Up the Arsenal.